Welcome to my Kamusta.
Sorry po. So, welcome to my Kamusta podcast. And kinakabahan ako because nandito si Atty. Chel Diokno.
Yes,
Hi, Attorney.
Attorney.
Hi, it's nice to see
Hi.
you both again.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join us because ang daming ganap, right?
Actually, Attorney, I was telling Saab na we were supposed to have this pod last week
Recording.
and then na-cancel kasi nung morning pa lang I saw na yun nga si former president would be joining. So I was like, "Oh, I'm sure this
the
is
podcast?
no,
the
the
a hearing.
So, sabi na honestly, like, all these hearings have been more important than any sports event or, as in, we watched the whole thing.
I
As in,
skipped Miss Universe, but I didn't miss these hearings.
yun. Ganun kami ngayon. Kaya we really, really wanted to break it down with you, get an insider perspective. So, I guess I'd like to start with, the first one. We wanted to check kasi all we see is what's happening on YouTube, right? So the main we want to figure out like what is the main difference of the vibe inside the room, and particularly having the victims' families there, and then there was biglang a bunch of cheering. Kasi from our end, it seemed it was horrible from our end, right? What happened talaga, if you could just like walk us through what happened then, and bakit ganun, bakit may cheering?
You're referring to the first Senate hearing.
Yes.
Yeah. We were also surprised. Apparently, there were people let into the gallery who were ardent supporters of the former administration. Mukhang sa kanila nang galing yung cheering. It's of course unbecoming of a Senate hearing, and I felt so bad for the relatives of the victims of the EJ case. I also felt my heart really went out to Senator Laila De Lima because it must have been so hard for her to sit just one seat apart from President Duterte in the Senate, and then next hearing sa Quadcom naman to be seated right beside him.
Yeah.
Ako, I really have so much admiration for Sen Laila, lalo pa after those hearings, because you have to be so composed to get through that.
Grabe.
Ay, grabe.
I saw that clip that kind of went viral when they were beside each other, and then there was a gesture made. Did you see that?
I was on the right side. Sen Laila was on the left, to the left of the former president. And there was a break, so my attention really wasn't on them. I only really saw it clearly sa YouTube na after. Kasi nakatingin ako, I was looking somewhere else, and when I looked back, nangyari na nga yung insidente, and mabuti Kongkit Belmonte was right behind Sen Laila, and immediately he stood up and intervened. But
that's good.
again, that's not something that should be happening in a legislative inquiry.
Actually, attorney, like, aside from kasi parang sinabi nga I think ni Congressman Barbers, sabi niya, hindi to basketball kasi may ganong energy eh. And from what we could see on the TV, parang may resbaka na nangyayari, di ba, with Cardema
It happened in the Senate hearing and the Quadcom, right?
more violent nung Congress, nung Quadcom, attorney, di ba? Kasi I think the Quadcom was more, they were poking and they weren't afraid of the former president. Why was there like with the Senator Trillanes, bakit may nagkakaresbakan at biglang parang, pare, parang may ganong energy?
I guess emotions really ran high during that hearing because both sides were there. Those who have been fighting for justice for the victims of the EJ case, and those who were supporting the war on drugs. And it just came to a head in the last Quadcom hearing. You could feel it inside the session room, the function hall. Ramdam na ramdam mo, pagpasok pa lang, iba yung tension. It's hard to describe, but it was in the air.
And I think for most Filipinos kasi, 'di ba, we're very, since we are very hospitable, parang hindi tayo sanay na parang kahit like you have like these former political parties who were destroying each other 3 years ago, and now they're like chika-chika, right? Are you saying that in that room there was a clear division and you could feel that division?
I think so. Yeah, you could really feel it, and there was. I think even among the other resource speakers, nararamdaman din nila. Kaya there were certain situations na nagtaasan din ng boses yung mga nagsasalita, yung mga inimbitahan nila. I don't know how it will be in the succeeding hearings. We'll see what will happen.
Para talaga siyang ano, no? Para talaga siyang nagpunta kang Ateneo Lasal basketball game, tas the fans are there ready to,
So,
watch some drama unfold. But sa UAAP kasi may parang may ending eh, 'di ba? Ano ba yung may I ask? What would be the ideal ending of this? And like kasi ako as a viewer, and I think Jim, you're more ano ba, updated with all of this. Yung sa akin, parang I just hear, oh, next week meron na magre-resume ulit. But gaano ba kahaba yung ganito? Ano ba yung magiging ending? When can we say na it's done? Itong mga hearing.
But first,
Kasi,
let's put it in context. I really welcome these hearings because for so many years, the victims had no voice. The victims had no forum where they could tell their stories to the public. You know how terrible it was during the last administration. The fear was so palpable. And while many relatives wanted justice, I spoke to hundreds of them over the course of all those years. Their question to me was always, if I file a case, what will happen? Can you guarantee that the rest of my family will not be hurt or killed? And of course, as legal counsel, we couldn't make that guarantee. At hindi ko naman rin makonsensya na sabihin sa kanila, mag-file tayo ng case and then may mangyari pa sa kanila. Kaya when the hearing started in the lower house, I felt that it was finally, we were given a space where we could really talk about the truth and what really happened during the war on drugs. For example, even just the numbers, ilan ba talaga yung napatay o pinatay? As early as 2018, the Supreme Court already said in a resolution in the case that we filed challenging the war on drugs that in the first 17 months alone, 20,322 Filipinos were killed.
Oh
But
my
that
God.
number did not really resonate during that time. It was only when we were able to testify to that in the Quadcom that people began to realize, ganun pala karami. That's more than the number that can fit in the MOA arena.
yeah.
Ganun karami. And that's only the first 17 months. Now, where will this end? Actually, I really don't know. With how many more hearings will be conducted? Well, in the Senate, wala pang announcement, so we don't know if and when a second hearing will happen. In the lower house naman, wala pa kaming natatanggap na invite for the next hearing. But I saw in the news that yesterday the Committee on, I think, Public Order conducted their own, not the Quadcom, but just that single committee had their own hearing. So how long will it last? I really don't know. What I do welcome, however, is that there are more and more people coming out talking about what happened. You have even people from within the last administration, like former Colonel Garma and others, really saying there was a reward system and there was incentives that were given for each case. Kaya sa akin naman, it's a good thing that this has unfolded.
Definitely. Ako, Atty. Chel, like even the pogo, the hearing, all these things. That's I think what we've been trying to do with the podcast nga, we've been trying to, guys, you need to watch because our social media feeds are so washed down na, and you may have had fatigue after the election. We have these hearings will actually help fix the apathy that has grown, right? And hearing yung stories, and kaya nga it was for me, I have some notes here, pero like yung the Senate hearing na after Kian's dad spoke, right after you have a senator joking with the president, right? So parang it was very nakakaano. It made our blood boil, and then even the fact nga na itong 30,000, it was mentioned also, 'di ba, attorney, na parang the number is that's why it's considered na something for the ICC. Yung parang if it's more than X amount of deaths, tama ba?
Well,
It
there's no set number, but when you talk about crimes against humanity, you're really talking about mass murder.
Oh,
yeah.
And I think the numbers really support that kind of case. You know, ang daming foul na nangyari talaga no Senate. Ako, I was so tempted several times to say something, pero I'm just a resource person there. Eh. Yung sinabi ni De La Rosa sa uncle ni Kian,
Yeah.
kay Randy,
Hmm.
na yung tatay ni Kian was involved in drugs, and then just because sa tingin lang sa itsura, I mean, pwede ba yun? And that's coming from a senator who was formerly the chief of PNP. Is that how you investigate? Just you look at the appearance of a person and you already conclude, and you say that in a public hearing? I mean, that's really foul.
And he was arguing pa with you, 'di ba? The definition of the what is the strict definition of terminate? Tama ba?
Neutralize. Okay lang naman
Neutralize.
yun. I have no problem with that. He wants to debate with me on that. That's not an issue. But when you start destroying the reputation of a person who's not even there, based on just how they look, I mean, talagang sobra yon. And
Yeah.
then yung ginawa ni Senator Jinggoy naman kay Senator Laila na parang pinapalabas niya na, oh, you had so much power then as Secretary of Justice and you didn't do anything. You know, Senator Laila will never ever use the law for any ill motive. She has been the victim of that so often that she would never do that to anyone else. Kaya yung mga insinuation ni Sen Jigo, sabi ko, foul na foul naman yan. Dapat hindi siya, that is not how our senators should conduct themselves in a Senate inquiry.
Meron akong question.
Oh.
So, how come the former president, nakakatawa we're not saying his name, the former president, he kept saying parang, ano naman yung ICC, ang tagal ko kayong hinihintay eh. What's going on there? Like, what are we waiting for?
Yeah, kasi there was a part also in the Quadcom, attorney, 'di ba, na si Attorney Colmenares even mentioned nga na he was saying na the ICC approved it, tapos yung lawyer ni Dutz was saying na hindi, actually hindi pa approved. What is the real deal? Ano na ba?
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. The former executive secretary, Majel Dea, was saying that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over the case, which is totally not true. When what happened was the prosecutor's office in the ICC conducted their own preliminary examination of the case, and then they requested formally the court, the pretrial chambers of the ICC, for permission to conduct a formal investigation. The court agreed. The pretrial chamber said, yes, you may conduct. And to me, it's so simple. Would the ICC allow the prosecutor to conduct an investigation if they don't have jurisdiction? Obvious naman. Kung walang jurisdiction, dapat nung una pa lang, they should have told the prosecutor, we don't have jurisdiction, you don't have jurisdiction, you cannot investigate. But the court granted the request for a formal investigation. The Philippine government appealed that to the appeals chamber in the ICC. And the appeals chamber of the ICC affirmed the pretrial chamber. They said the lower court in the ICC was correct in saying that the investigation should proceed, and also that we have jurisdiction. So dalawang beses na yan, both courts, there's a lower court and the appeal court in the ICC, both courts said that there is jurisdiction. Kaya hindi ko rin magets kung saan nanggagaling yung sinasabi ni Mejeldea na wala daw jurisdiction yung ICC.
But attorney, yung sabi kasi ni, if I were just, as a casual viewer, nakaka-dishearten when that guy, si Resbach, and si former president, they both were very clearly saying na, sige nga, wala naman ever nagawa ang ICC eh. And then even
Basically, they're saying like, it's all talk. Wala namang nangyayari.
President
Come on.
Duterte even said nga na parang, si Stalin ba? Or something like that. Parang ay walang nagawa ang ICC sa kahit sinong, is that true? I mean, or what can we expect? Like, what are the possibilities that can happen?
No, it's not. The court has convicted a number of accused. I understand that there are some people already in jail who are serving their term based on convictions imposed by the ICC. Now, you have to understand where they're coming from. I think they want the public, especially those who would tend or would be inclined to support them, to believe what they're saying. That, wala namang kwenta yung ICC. But no matter what they say, when the ICC acts, they will really be put in a spot. Now, where is the ICC investigation? The next step in the ICC investigation is the issuance of a warrant of arrest. Okay. Nandun na tayo sa stage na yan. If the what we're waiting for is for the Office of the Prosecutor to file a request or a motion with the court, the pretrial chamber, for the issuance of warrants against those they believe are most responsible for crimes against humanity. When that happens, the court will have to make a decision, and if the court issues a warrant of arrest, then we will now, the Philippine government will have to respond to that. There are basically two things that could happen. There's an existing agreement between the Interpol and the International Criminal Court. So when that happens, the court will most likely notify the Interpol and ask them to issue what is called a red notice. If you recall, former Congressman Teves, diba, na-arresto siya sa East Timor. That was on the basis of a red notice also, because there was a warrant issued against him by a Philippine court. So kung mangyari yon and the accused who are named in the warrant travel, the Interpol can arrest them. The other way is that the same warrant will also be transmitted to our government. And it will be up to our government. We'll have to see what they will do to implement the warrant of arrest. Because even if we have left the ICC, because this case happened during the time we were still part of the ICC, it's still an obligation on the part of the Philippine government to cooperate with the ICC. So malalaman lang natin yan pag lumabas yung warrant of arrest.
Do you mean the Philippines is not part of the ICC?
They withdrew it, diba?
We withdrew effective 2019.
Yeah.
Oh, how convenient.
During the Duterte administration.
Okay.
And attorney, ano yung based on parang the rumblings? If I were a naysayer and I said, ay nako, so Philippine government yung magpapakulong kay former president. Would you, ako naman, the optimist side of me is thinking, well, the political motivations are there for this current administration, right? Parang kumbaga na, like the Marcos, the current admin, there is a faction right now, there's a division. So aren't they politically motivated actually to issue this and make it roll out?
Well, first of all, the obligation of the government would be to deliver the accused to the Hague, to the court itself, and for them to stand trial. So
Mm.
hindi sila papakulong dito. They'll if they will respect the warrant, then they will take the accused into custody, which may include the former president, and then deliver them to the International Criminal Court. Doon, magkakaroon ng trial. Of course, they will have their day in court. They will have access to lawyers. And they will also be able to cross-examine and defend and present witnesses of their own. And, one thing I think that some people are missing is that we can be assured that a trial in the International Criminal Court is going to be fair and that everyone will be given due process. Alam naman natin dito sa atin, unang-una, yung mga haharap na testigo, madaling takutin.
Yeah.
It's easy for them to say, ayoko mag-testify kasi baka may mangyari sa pamilya ko o sa akin. Second, that cannot happen, I think, in the ICC. We're pretty sure they will have more freedom to speak there. Second, I don't think the judges in the ICC can be corrupted or influenced or intimidated or coerced into making an unfair decision. I believe they will really decide any case based on the merits, on the evidence presented, which is not the same in our country, sad to say. Because, for one thing, the former president appointed so many justices and judges during his term. Many of them are still sitting in different courts, from the lower courts to the Sandigan Bayan, to the Court of Appeals, and to the Supreme Court. So paano natin masasabi na magiging patas ang paglitis ng kaso dito? That's precisely why we joined the ICC in the first place, so that we can be assured of a forum where it will be fair for everybody.
And I feel like in the past hearings, medyo marami rin siyang sinabing incriminating sa sarili niya.
I was gonna
So
get to
straight.
that, attorney. Like all the stuff that he's been saying, the arrest me, I take full responsibility with
And examples of
Congresswoman
how he killed
Luistro,
people, right?
right? I don't know, you guys are the lawyers, so obviously that was, for us, it seemed brilliant, right? But in fact, kasi si Congresswoman Luistro, she made him repeat over and over again. Are you saying legally, ganyan, you have the responsibility?
Yeah.
So, can these be used if let's say they do go to court?
Yes, definitely. Those statements were made under oath
Oh, nga.
before a public hearing, and therefore they are admissible in evidence both here in our country and in the ICC.
Okay.
I was shocked rin kasi biglang may mga tinitake back. Medyo gaslighting yung nangyari na parang, never ko man sinabi na patayin yung mga addict Never ko sinabi yun. And I was like, huh? Is everybody just imagining things? Kasi you said
It was
these
a bit
things.
confusing.
But okay, anyway.
Yeah. Sorry,
go.
one more. Again, sorry, I nag-geek out kasi ako, at least I get some insider info. Like the bombshell of Senator Trillanes.
Which is that?
The fact that I remember this when President Duterte was gonna run, he flagged that he has a bank account where the money is coming in from these known Chinese drug lords and whatever. And that's obviously the one that caused the most commotion.
Oh, one from the guy who he claimed he didn't really know, diba?
Yeah.
Ano mga Michael Yang?
Yung mga yun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yun, Atty. Chel, like, parang, how is it,
Sorry, Jim, for those who didn't watch that in particular, ano yung sinabi niya? He has bank accounts.
that money is coming, and that a joint bank account between him and VP Sara, and there are money more than 100 million plus over the course of a few years, where money has been coming from sila Michael Yang, these known drug lords. Okay, so attorney, like, and Duterte was saying, like, bakit hindi mo kasi file? So parang he was saying, like, bakit oh, kung totoo yan, bakit what is the real what's going on there?
Well, actually, Senator Trillanes did say that he filed cases, but this was during the time of President Duterte.
His power.
So those cases didn't prosper during that time. What really struck me during that hearing was, first, Duterte's statement that, yeah, I'll sign a waiver, etc. And then suddenly, mamaya-maya, nung magpapapirma na sila, ay ayaw niya.
Yeah.
And he started saying, he started imposing conditions on signing. And in fact, na-anticipate ni Senator Trillanes yun because when he immediately said, oh, even in 2015, you promised already, or 2016, you promised you would sign a waiver, pero when we met sa bank, hindi naman ikaw sumipot. Ang sumipot si Atty. Panelo at ayaw naman niya mag-sign ng, wala siyang dalang waiver na galing kay ating Pangulong Duterte. So, that would really solve the problem once and for all. If they sign a waiver and it comes out that no money came in, then, I mean, if I were in their shoes and I wanted to, resolve this issue once and for all, easy. Just sign the waiver if you have nothing to hide. Yeah.
The waiver is to open up the bank accounts and prove stuff, and then he doesn't want to sign it. Very reminiscent siya of the whole AirUp thing and opening of the envelope, right? Diba? Remember that?
Yeah.
Sorry, okay. It was like flashbacks. Okay.
Attorney Chel, before we go to the next, the last segment, I want to ask also. Everyone was saying, "Hey, isn't anyone going to question the fact that the the former president's lawyer, is the lawyer of Alice Go, the si
What's his name?
yung may bigote,
I think Delgra. I'm not sure.
Hilar,
Right. Right.
David, parang attorney David or something. Basta he's
We'll fact check it.
Anyway, is that not a big deal?
Well, for us in the legal profession, okay lang naman na merong lawyer who will defend one or another personality, someone who's in the public eye. But it does raise some questions about who is, I think there was another issue that was, I'm not sure if this was raised, but among us in the legal community, when we hear that a certain lawyer is defending or representing some controversial personalities, there's really no conclusions we can draw except the fact that they were engaged, and this is probably not pro bono. Ganun lang.
Yeah. Okay.
And last, while watching kasi the hearings, not last, sorry. Last ko.
Okay.
Last of my questions. Yung while watching, I wanted to know who I was rooting for. And it was a constant struggle for me. And I had to go to my friends who were in the previous admin to and get insider info. Like when it came to Mr. The former president, medyo, I admire your bravery, whatever. So I guess my question is, which it will be connected to what we're gonna ask next, is but how what is the best way we can know na, kasi I don't want our pod kids and us to be so easily swayed by these hearings also. Na as simple as, kunwari, if you were watching the Alice Go hearing, you would actually be like, oh, okay pala si Senator Jinggoy. Like he's attacking this corrupt gangster. So yun, I guess parang anong advice nyo to the people who are not well versed in Philippine politics, its history? How do we discern better who to root for and also affect who we will vote for in the future?
It is a challenge, and I think that the baseline for me is Senator Risa Ontiveros. So when you have a senator like that who's always prepared, who asks very intelligent questions, and who will insist on getting answers, then and who's very consistent no matter what the hearing is about, whether it's about Alice Go or Kibuloy or EJ case, you can see the consistency in her, in how she conducts herself. And I think that's the best criteria for judging our legislators. If they look good in one hearing or in one set of investigation, but didn't look good in another, then that raises questions. Bakit ganon sila nung isang investigasyon at ganito naman ang ginawa nila sa ibang investigasyon? So that's one red flag for me. Another one is, like you say, knowing where they are coming from. Because if they were supporters of, let's say, the previous administration or part of the last government, then you can pretty much expect that, kaya pala yung ganun ang tanong niya.
Okay.
So, yun.
Attorney, what about the constant flip-flopping kasi? Kasi yun yung nakakatakot eh. Kasi, kunwari, yun nga, madadala ka.
So, ang inisip mo ba is parang, baka nag-change of heart na siya,
Hindi
gano'n?
nga ako ganun ka.
Not at all.
It's not about that. It's more of like,
You don't
baka
know.
naman namuliti ka lang siya nung time na yun. Ayaw niya mawalan ng political capital, nakisakay siya sa ganitong and now he's trying to rectify it, kunwari.
Well, talagang ano yun. I think we all have, when we're watching, we all have to look at the people who are questioning with a grain of salt. Kasi ito na yung, for some of them anyway, sa tingin ko, yung attitude nila is, ito na yung pagkakataon ko magpapogi.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we have to always have in the back of our minds when we watch these hearings.
What I appreciate about Senator Risa actually is very direct to the point, and it's like while a lot of people are like saying a lot of things, she says direct to the point, and then like absolutely ruffles some feathers na kailangan mag-suspend, and then makikita mo na yung isa, yung na-ruffle niya na feathers, sobrang dudumugin ng mga rest back niya, and then it pans out to her just quietly doing her job, taking notes, just being by herself, and like she's like, I'm just doing my job, and like I'm just trying to do my job here, and ayun, I love that. I love that for us because at least I know who to root for. Okay. Anyway, speaking of who to root for, I hope you can help us with this next topic because I am 36, 37, turning 37 this year. And I still don't entirely get the concept of a party list. So, if you may please indulge me.
Explain
to me like I'm a 10-year-old. What is a party list? What happens? How many can you vote for? And yeah, just please. What is it?
All right. I know it can get confusing, especially now because parang the party list system has pumasok na yung traditional politics eh. But the original concept of a party list was to allow the sectors in our society who really don't have representation in Congress to have a voice in lawmaking. So the original party lists, for example, like Akbayan, the party I belong to, were really there to represent the marginalized and those who are often neglected when it comes to lawmaking in our country. And if you look at the original set of party lists who were elected and voted in, I would say 90+% of them were that way. Unfortunately, as time passed, some political opportunists saw an opening. They saw an opportunity to extend their political dynasties. They saw an opportunity to go around yung being re-elected more than 3 times by running under a party list para tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung ligaya, you know? And that is what I think even the COMELEC chair now was calling for some legislation to bring it back to its original purpose. What happened was there was a Supreme Court decision that said that, well, the way the law is written, it's not only confined to sectoral representatives. So that kind of opened the door to traditional politics, which is now, I think, hindi naman na overrun, pero ang dami na ngayon ng mga, lalo na yung mga tumatakbong party list na sabihin na lang natin, mga trapo talaga. No?
Hindi ba marginalized community ang mga artista? Joke.
Wait, Attorney Chel, ano yung, let's say, kunwari, can you give an example of paano nabali yung sistema? So, kunwari, let's say si
It's the
Jim.
way their law was
So,
written daw.
yeah, alam ko inano ng Supreme Court, right? Pero kunwari, ako si Congressman Jim. Okay, how would he have done it for political gain and extending a dynasty?
So let's say I am Congressman Jim and I've already had 3 terms, so I cannot anymore run
Okay.
in my district. What I can do is, gagawa ako ng party list. Tapos ang iboboto naman ng party list, hindi naman ako, pero ako ang first nominee. So pag makakuha kami ng enough votes, ako yung uupo.
And because of that Supreme Court's ruling, naging possible yun. Nagawin yun.
Yes, naging possible yon. So that's one way to. Another is, okay, I'm a congressman or a congresswoman, but I also want my son or my daughter to also sit in Congress. So hanap ako ng party list or gawa ako ng party list at yung maging first nominee nun ay yung anak ko. Kasi we don't have yet any laws on that ban political dynasties. So, it's either, minsan naman, they don't use party list, they just make them run for mayor or, another local government position. Pero ngayon, may opportunity na dumami sila within Congress through this way.
How many seats can the party list fill ba sa Congress?
Maximum of 3. So you can only vote, each voter can only vote for one party list.
One lang
So,
pala.
yeah. So when we go, and some of us forget na yung party list nasa likod ng balota yun eh.
Oo nga.
So
Yes.
sana lahat na nanonood, please make sure that you look at both sides of the ballot when you vote. You can only vote for one party list, but if a party list receives roughly, they compute it every election, roughly 300,000 votes, then that gives you 1 seat. If you get more or less 600,000, that will probably get you 2 seats. And if you get about 1 million or 900,000 plus, that will entitle you to 3.
For the next elections, attorney, who would, if you guys did get that 1 million votes, who would get the seats?
The first 3 nominees of Akbayan.
Who are?
That's myself as the first nominee, then Kong Percy Sendanya as the second nominee, and Dada Kiram Ismula. She's a leader, she's a moral leader and a leader also of the indigenous peoples. She's based in Mindanao, and I really hope she gets a lot of exposure because ang gaganda ng mga advokasya niya, ang gaganda ng mga programs and projects niya in their area. We hope to have some more activities with her. Of course, the problem is that because of the distance, minsan hindi namin siya naisasama sa events namin dito.
But that would be a great representation of, the Moro IP.
So at least, alam naman ng podkids, our podkids are like the children.
The children.
And last, attorney, thank you so much for your time. Last question siguro.
Rapid fire.
Ako before rapid fire, last, sorry.
Last. Go.
Who are you voting for in the next senatorial race?
Well, if Senator Risa were running, I would definitely put her number 1 in the list, but her term will not end until 2028. So it's going to be a big challenge for me to choose among those who are candidates for the next election. I haven't really given it much thought yet kasi malayo pang ang May. Definitely, what criteria would I use? Number 1, progressive, pro-poor legislators who want to make a difference for the marginalized, those who have the skills and capability to really be good in sitting in the Senate, and who have the integrity, most of all, that they cannot be corrupted.
With the current slate, attorney, mukhang none of the above ang sagot nyo.
Kaya ako nga sabi, challenge yan eh. Pero makikita, malalaman naman natin yan as we get closer to the elections.
Okay, last question. This is a few questions lang from our podcast. It could be a short answer.
Worth it pa ba mag-aral ng law kung di naman siya sinusunod ng mga supposedly lawmakers and enforcers? This is from someone in a quarter life crisis.
Yes, it still is. Let me tell you my own experience. When I was young and I told my father that I wanted to take law. It was the time of martial law, where it was really the law that came from the barrel of the gun rather than what we know as the rule of law. But even at that time, he never discouraged me from taking law, because I think the reason is that we need people who will fight for what is right within the legal profession. If you allow everyone in the legal profession just to use their power for their own interest, de lalo pang masisira yung lipunan natin. Kaya I would encourage everyone who really wants to make a difference in our country, who wants to take law, to go and pursue it and make a difference when you pass the bar and become a lawyer.
Oh.
In connection with that, how do you hindi. How, kasi ang tanong niya is, mataas ba ang kita ng lawyer? And can you still make a difference and mataas ang kita?
Well, yes, you can. I know I have a number of friends who really earn well, and yet they still kept their heart in the right place and were able to help so many others, especially victims of human rights violations. And it's not true naman na pag mag-human rights lawyer ka, you'll end up in the poorhouse. Human rights lawyers still have to earn money to make a living. And we still cases that are paying cases. It's just that part of the cases we handle are also pro bono, and many of them involve human rights violations. Ganun lang yun. I have also had paying clients throughout my 36 years of practice, kasi kailangan din naman, you need to feed your family.
Yes, of course. Another question from our podcast is, did you ever think about quitting and doing something else?
No,
Never. Wow.
never. I mean, of course, there were times I felt depressed and didn't feel good, but I never ever thought of abandoning the legal profession. I started my legal education when I was only 13 years old. I would go with my dad to court. I would carry his bag, and I was so fascinated. I never got bored because the lawyers I got to watch were among the best ever lawyers in the country. And when I was starting around 14, 15 years old, every summer, I would work in my dad's office, which conveniently was in our house at that time. So I would, after bring back breakfast, I would report to him. And in the beginning, he would just give me, little things to do. But after a while, he would make me read cases, and he would call me when he would prepare a witness or do things for court. And I was so fascinated by the work that he did that it's a lifelong thing. As a lawyer, you never stop learning, and you should never stop learning. There's always something new that new knowledge you can acquire and new skills. So that's one thing that he opened my mind to.
Aww.
Gabi, Attorney Chel, while watching all these hearings, Sabi and I could not stop imagining you being in those hearings as a senator. And just want to remind everyone that We voted for you, and we will vote for you
Yes,
in the coming
absolutely.
elections.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Aside from all of this, you're a wonderful teacher.
Yeah, I always learn so much when you're on the pod. Thank you so much, Attorney Chel. And we do have a lot of law students and young lawyers who are pod kids.
Mhm.
Is there any parting words you'd like to share with them? Actually, there's one question that you could maybe want to answer. How did you manage to navigate what you really want in terms of practicing as a new lawyer? Like what field of law to specialize in, like that.
You have to spend some time looking inside yourself and asking yourself what you really want to do. And that kind of introspection, I think, is so important in any profession, but especially in law. Because if you don't do that, you cannot ground yourself. You cannot it's so easy to be pushed one way or another as a professional. And sometimes the temptations are so great that you don't realize that you've entered into the wrong path. So it requires, I think, that from time to time you take a step back and ask yourself, what am I doing? What I really want to do? Is this something I'm comfortable with? Is this something I want? Is this the kind of direction I want to bring myself to? And basically, I think that's the kind of anchor that will guide you in the legal profession or in other professions as well.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Attorney
you.
Chel. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
All right. That's it for
Yeah.
today. Thanks,
All right.
Attorney Chel.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.